Everyone keeps acting like teenagers in their 20s, like 30 is the new 20, what happened? Just because you're in your 30s doesn't mean you still won't behave and or act like you were 18. You may have learned some lessons in life, but really, there's no difference. Besides maybe feeling old and not being able to do some stuff you did in your early teens. Now, if we talk 40s, I can totally see it. The economy has changed so much that it's so hard to move out of the family home without going knee-deep in debt or working your ass off while also trying to juggle university, grad school, etc. Most people I grew up with didn't finish university until their late 20s and early 30s. When 30s now, can buy a home and have to live with their parents. As they did in their 20s because they cannot afford to live in this economy. They behave like their 20s because that's how they are treated in society. They are not acting their appropriate age when their parents were 30 because they don't have the same outlook as their parents did. So, they have to focus on their career and hang out with people that are in their 20s still hustling like them. Also, in Hollywood, 30s are playing the roles of 20s that are starting life. It just distorts reality for what can be for you. Maybe because more people are choosing to do what they enjoy in life, instead of just slaving their life away for the benefit of someone else, and that allows them to be happier, and by extension seem a bit more childish in their behavior. Honestly, unless people are in situations which require maturity, restraint and focus, they shouldn't be called out for being childish. If they are just enjoying themselves by playing board games, watching cartoons or reading comics. We deserve to just be happy, even if the corporate world doesn't want that to happen. People currently in their 20s lost a good chunk of their youth to the pandemic, have high student loans to pay back, get paid lower than previous generations if you take into account cost of living inflation output, live with high rental prices, live in perhaps the worst time ever to buy a home. Having kids has never been more expensive. Have the same situation as other generation of 20-year-olds in that they are still figuring out who they are. Now, why be an adult if society is making it harder and harder to be one? Okay, so not sure if this is true or not. I did read it as a reply to something similar on Reddit, so it may not be real, but as our life expectancy grows, we go through developmental stages slower. Think about it. When the life expectancy was 40 you were getting married at like 13 and starting a family before a dragon or the bubonic plague came and took you to Narnia. Now we are seeing more and more people living into their 90s and 100s, this pushes that urgency to grow up out a bit. Can't afford a house. Not settling down to have kids. Used to be able to afford a house on one income, now it's a struggle on two. Food and electricity is crazy high. Not gonna look down on someone partying the weekends away to get away from how crap life is. Why should I stop liking what I like? Getting older doesn't suddenly change what I like. I love pink. Who says I should stop watching anime and collecting cute plushes? I'm 32 UK. Also COVID was a time trap for 2 years. Totally get what you mean. I think it's a combination of factors. Society today seems to place less emphasis on traditional adult milestones like marriage and parenthood in your 20s, which can make people in their 30s still feel like they're figuring things out. Plus, with all the health and fitness trends, it's easier to stay active and look young. Social media probably plays a part too, since it often glorifies youthfulness. It's like we're redefining what each age feels like. I think our generation is getting married and having kids less. As a woman, there's a lot of us who are childless by choice. I think these two things are so intertwined with become a full-fledged adult that without them we feel like we've not reached that full adult potential, if that makes sense. Personally, I'm all for it, especially the childless aspect. Too many people have kids mindlessly with no intention to raise actual adults. I'm 40 and didn't feel the weight of adulthood until this week. We found out my wife is pregnant, the person who raised her died yesterday, so we are getting ready to drive 14 hours to take care of everything, with 2 very elderly dogs, one that honestly might not survive the trip. Oh, and we are moving across the country for a new job in a few weeks, so we have to sell our house and buy a new one and move in less than 30 days. When the housing crisis is so bad that you're forced to live in student housing accommodations until age 31, you're gonna keep the mindset of a college kid until age 31. And after that you simply are running behind in life. But I feel like in general humans live longer, healthier lives now that a lot of people are appearing younger on lifestyle than they are. 60 is the new 50 and stuff like that. It has an effect on all ages. Everyone is saying the economy, but honestly, I just think it's not true at all. People always acted like idiots. You just didn't know it because you were a kid. Also, having kids does put an end to a lot of activities that would be considered immature or whatever, and people are now having kids much later in life. But I think that people actually got more responsible as whole, not less. Honestly, I think it's the housing market. There are some other background noise reasons, but that's the big one. I work a full-time job, a side hustle, and have monetized almost all my hobbies, and at this rate I'll be lucky if I can buy a house before I'm 50. And I'm supposed to what, have a kid? That would be really irresponsible. But buying a PS5 and an Xbox is only kind of irresponsible. We've infantilized our teenagers so that they still need mommy and daddy to help them. My GF was shocked when she advertised for help, and the person's mother responded to the ad on behalf of her daughter. This was an ad for a lawyer to work in her office. You get through university, law school, pass the bar, and your mother still does your job applications for you? Maybe younger 20s when you're 21, maybe 22. 23 or 24, and definitely older than that you stop acting like teenagers. You don't realize it, but one day the opportunity to do something like you did as a teenager comes up and you might think how embarrassing it would be to be caught doing that. Caught doing some dumbass thing at 25 years old is not funny, it's embarrassing. Because you don't actually have to give up your hobbies until you retire, you can just keep doing what you love while you're young and loving life. Even if you have a little less time to do it because of responsibilities, it keeps you social, young and fitter for longer. BTW, I skate. I'm in my 30s and there's plenty of people my age or older than me still skating. I fail to understand what your point is. You mean you're seeing 28-year-olds enjoying their life rather than having kids and buying a house? Probably because 28-year-olds can afford kids or a house usually, so might as well just have fun with our time here. Are you trying to insinuate that somehow the way you live your life is better and more worthy? TBH. I already predicted at 15 that by the time I'm near 30, I'll still see myself as a kid rather than a man. I was right and I own that shit. It's probably a saving grace low-key, because if I had to act like an adult, aka be 100 serious and soul-drained in every aspect of life and lost my humor, hopes, and dreams, man, I'd probably be fucking skull in GL. We're learning how to live healthier, so we are still youthful for longer. We're also stuck living at home for longer, so not as real-world aware and weary for longer. We're more cotton wool and walk on eggshells society. So don't learn to harden up, aka become jaded and bitter and racist, sexist, otherist as early or hopefully at all. The longer life expectancy get, there will be a natural shift in how society feels about certain age groups. It also has to do with the economy and how it trends data. It makes life different for each demographic. So what was harder for one age group to have at a certain point, naturally will downshift or upshift to meet their respective decade. I'm 35 and I still feel like a teenager, but with adult money. The only adult thing I ever did was get married, which is now over, so I'm back, baby. X200B. I feel like people rush into life way too quickly. It seems like everyone I went to HS with had kids about 2 seconds after graduation. That seems crazy to me. Go and enjoy your life. I'm currently 29 and have a very stressful job with a lot of responsibility. Just let me spend my weekend hanging out with friends, catching Pokemon, playing video games. If I couldn't even unwind from Friday evening to Sunday evening, I'd be burned out by now. I dread the fact that I'll turn 30 soon and my youth will mathematically be over. Infantilization and deresponsibilization. I need a trend to adapt to the changes in society and to maximize profit on valuable fields like pharmaceutics and entertainment void fillers. Responsible adults have less time and money to constantly waste on superfluous stuff and on ways to fix themselves compared to perennial adolescents. My parents were mid-20s and 30s when they had me, but behaved like teenagers for much of my life. For some people, adulthood is just teenage life extended with more permission resources if they're lucky. As far as I can tell, the extending of adolescence into the 20s and even 30s started with Gen X, if it had a starting point at all. I am turning 30 next month. At my age, my mom was married, owned a home, had an associate's degree, and had me as her first child. I am single, renting a tiny studio, have a master's, and can barely afford to take care of myself, let alone a kid. It's hard to act like an adult when you can't reach the same milestones as quickly. I'm in my 50s and I'm acting like I'm in my 20s. I think their 20s is what people most want to exit in. Edit typo, but also not. I meant to write exist, but exit while darker is definitely true. Screw the aging process and degenerating bodies slowly turning us into cripples. I'm all for improving quality of life until death. I never got to live as a teenager when I was a teenager due to untreated mental health issues, constant unaccepted clinical depression, struggling with overbearing school that didn't try and help challenged students, low social skills, being poor as hell, abusive family, and constantly blaming myself. And I'm not a special case. My parents constantly complained about how hard children were and how much money we cost and how much they had to sacrifice for us, the entire time I was growing up. And now they wonder why they don't have many grandkids? Like, excuse me, you told us children were pretty much life-ending, worst thing in the world. Smiley face. I spent 2 years of high school studying for the university entrance exams and spent 3 years studying for the usual to get an English language certificate. All of that with the pandemic. Now that I am 20 years old and go to the university in the same city that I live, I have finally free time to do stuff. I'm 35. I work a full-time job and a side hustle I am building into a business. Pay more for my apartment than I would a mortgage, and pay all my bills. If I want to do young things as hobbies and in my free time because I don't feel like I should be home on a lazy boy chair by 8 p.m., then I damn sure will. I'm 43 and I'm basically just a big kid. I'm sadly responsible enough to handle adult issues like marriage, home ownership, dishes, finances, taxes and hold down a real job, but the kid in me that just wants to play video games and hockey all day every day thinks all this stupid adult stuff is just lame. Because it is. I am 40 and feel like 30. Also take into account that in many countries even if you have a job, inflation and corporate greed are killing our income, so many milestones that previous generations achieved in their 20s and 30s are moving further and further for current generations.